In today's video, we will be talking about scale degrees. In my opinion, this is one of the most important things you're going to learn in this course. When I first learned this concept, it completely changed my perception of music. It simplified things for me and it made everything so much easier when it comes to listening and learning music. A scale degree is the position of the note relative to the root note. So what does this mean? Let's say we are in D major. This is the melody I came up with. And here's another melody I came up with in G major. So from the two melodies that I played, they sound exactly the same, right? Even though they're technically playing different notes, the shape of the melody is the same, the intervals between the melodies are the exact same. So what scale degrees does is it gives us a sequence which simplifies music so that we don't have to rely on scale anymore. Now there are two types of scale degrees. There are scale degrees for individual notes and scale degrees for chords. The note one is really easy. So let's take a scale of E major. Scale degrees in notes are written in numbers, so E is going to be our root note, so we'll label this number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and back to 1. Now, let's use our previous example of D major and write this melody in scale degrees instead. So, we went from 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 6, 5. Now that we have this number, we can move this to any other key. Let's try this on C major. We went from 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 6, 5. Scale degrees work exactly the same on minor scales. So let's pick a minor scale. Let's try D minor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, back to 1. And if we were to apply the scale degree of our previous melody on D minor, we have 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 6, 5. Scale degrees is great for learning melodies, but it's also really important when you're learning chords. Later on in this course, I'll be talking about chord extensions, and you really need to learn the scale degrees before you start learning how to make chords. For example, if I wanted to create a F major 7 chord, we start with a basic F major triad, which is and the 7th is going to be the scale degree. So starting from F, we have 1, 3, 5, 7. And this is how you create a F major 7 chord. We just went over scale degrees for notes. Now we have to go over scale degrees for chords and chord progressions. Now, scale degrees for notes are represented by numbers, but scale degrees for chords are represented by Roman numerals. So let's pick a key. Let's try A major scale. Alright, so those are the notes for A major scale. We're going to start with our root note and create a triad. And we're going to ascend the scale and keep making triads and note all the chords we're making. So here's the A major triad. We'll label this number 1 in our scale degrees with a Roman numeral like this. Let's move on to the second note of A major scale, which is B. So we come up with this B minor triad chord. When you're playing a minor chord, you want to label your Roman numerals in lowercase letters. So we'll label this with 2 lowercase I for 2. So the third note on our A major scale is C sharp. Skip a note in the scale, go to E, and we skip another note in the scale to find G sharp, which creates C sharp minor triad chord, which we'll label number 3 with 3 lowercase i's like this. By the way, if you're wondering how I'm getting to these notes, it's because I'm skipping through the notes within the major scale. So when I'm going from C sharp to E, I'm not thinking about it in terms of skipping 2 semitones. I'm thinking about the notes that's in a major scale. So for our fourth note, we have D, we skip a note to F sharp, and then we skip another note from there to A, which creates a D major chord, which we'll label number 4 like this. Alright, so the 5th note on our A major scale is E. To create a triad, we have E major chord, which we'll label like this. And then the 6th note on our A major scale is F sharp. From there, we skip a note in between to A, and then we skip a note in between to C sharp, which creates a F sharp minor, which means we have a minor 6, which we'll label like this. The last note on our scale is G sharp. We skip a note in between to B, then we skip another note from there to D, and this creates a diminished chord. So we have 7th diminished chord. Diminished chord will be labeled with a lowercase with a minus sign behind like this. In other music theory book, you might see a circle behind it instead of the minus sign, and they're basically the same thing. Now, I know we haven't really discussed diminished chords yet, but don't worry, we'll be diving deep into that later on in the course. For now, you just need to know that it's there. So what we just did was we figured out every single chord possible within a major scale. And on top of that, we tracked whether it's major, minor, or diminished. Now we transfer that knowledge into any other major scale on the piano. Here's a really popular chord progression. So we go from C, G, A minor, to F. Our first chord was a C major within the scale of C. So we'll label this number 1 with an uppercase like this. So the next chord was G major, which is the 5th scale degree on C major scale. After that, it was an A minor, which is our 6th scale degree on C major scale. And then from there, we went back to F major chord, which is our 4th note in our scale degree. So if you were to write down the chord progression, it would look like this: 1, 5, 6, 4. Now that we have learned that our chord progression is 1, 5, 6, 4, we can transfer this to any other key. So let's try this in F major. So the first chord was 1, 5, 6, 4 on F major. Now you can do the same for minor scale. Let's pick C minor for this one. So here are the notes for C minor. So for our 1, we have C minor, which is our 1. We'll write this with a lowercase I like this. So the second note in our C minor scale is, which we have a diminished chord, which we'll label with a 2 lowercase I with a minus sign. Next note on the scale is we have E flat. And there, skip a note in between to G, then we skip a note in between there to B flat, which creates E flat major chord, which we will label it number 3. Next, we have F. From F to, we got A flat, and from A flat to C, and we have a minor 4 chord. Next note on the scale is G, skip a note to B flat, and from there skip a note to D, and we come up with a minor 5th. So the next note we have on the scale is A flat, and this is a major 6. And we can even bring over the 1, 5, 6, 4 chord progression into a minor scale. Because when we look at the notes, we already know the quality of the chord. Let's say we're doing it in a B minor scale, which looks like this. So a 1, 5, 6, 4 chord progression on a B minor scale looks like this. 1, 5, 6, 4, and so on. This might have been a lot of information, so go back and watch it again if you're confused. If you guys don't know your major and minor scales yet, it's going to be really hard to get this down, so make sure you learn your minor and major scales first.